Good morning, children. This is Mrs. Anjum Aleem from Springfields School, Masabtank, biology teacher for class 10th. Children, in my last video, you have learnt about the male reproductive system and the formation of the male gametes, that is the reproductive cell, sperm. So, we are now aware of what is male reproductive system and what are the reproductive cells called. They are called as sperms. Today, I am going to deal with the female reproductive system and the childbirth, and after the birth, what happens. Now, first thing that you have to remember here is that what are the functions of the female reproductive system. The functions are to produce the female egg cells, transports the eggs to the site of fertilization. The fertilization of the egg by sperm occurs in the fallopian tubes. After fertilization provides a place for a baby to develop. If fertilization does not take place, the system is designed to menstruate. Produces female sex hormones that maintains the reproductive cycle. Yes, progesterone and the estrogen. These are the two hormones that are produced by the female reproductive system. And when we talk about the parts of the female reproductive system, it consists of a pair of ovaries along with a pair of oviduct. Now the oviducts are nothing but fallopian tubes. A pair of ovaries, a pair of fallopian tubes. Uterus, cervix, vagina. The external genitalia located in the pelvic region. Now here you have to remember that even the mammary glands also integrate with the female reproductive system. So again, we should know about the location of the female reproductive system. Yes, the female reproductive systems consisting of a pair of ovaries, a pair of fallopian tubes or oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina. Where are these ovaries located? Can you see the ovaries? A pair of ovaries are located in the abdominal cavity and they produces the ova. Ova developed in tiny cellular structures called the follicles, which at first looks like cellular bubbles in the ovary. They are called Graafian follicles. So before forming the ova, Graafian follicles are produced in the ovary. As a follicle grows, it develops a cavity filled with fluid. Each follicle contains a single ovum which is formed after the process of cell division meiosis. When an ovum is matured, the follicle ruptures at the surface of the ovary and the tiny ovum is flushed out, and this release of the egg or ovum is called ovulation. Now what did I just now told you? That ovaries produces the follicles which are called as the Graafian follicles. One of the ovary will produce each month. They produces many follicles are formed, but only one of them will get matured. And that follicle, when it ruptures, the ovum is released. And this ova is flushed into the fallopian tube. It is catched by the funnel. Can you see the funnel? Yes? Funnel shaped structures, they are present near the ovary. So they are catched by the funnel and the ova are released into the fallopian tube, which are also called as the oviduct. Now this is the place where the fertilization actually takes place. The sperms are released in the vagina of the female and travels through the uterus into the fallopian tube, and they fertilize the ovum in the fallopian tube. Now we know about the ovaries and the ovum, and we also know about the fallopian tubes. They are called as the oviducts. They have a funnel present which extends and it leads into a thick walled uterus. So fertilization actually takes place in the fallopian tubes, and after the zygote is formed, the mitotic division takes place and it travels down the fallopian tubes into the uterus. Can you see the uterus? The upper, it is labeled at the top, uterus, the pear-shaped structure. It is inverted pear-shaped structure, and the inner lining of the uterus is called as the endometrium. The thickness of these layers increases gradually soon after the menstruation. Now you see, the wall is becoming thick, the endometrium becomes thick and it is ready to receive the embryo if there is fertilization. But if there is no fertilization, no sperm entering into the body, then the endometrium disintegrates and flows out as menstrual fluid, that is the monthly cycle periods. If there is fertilization, then the thickness of the endometrium continues and it makes itself ready to receive the embryo, and it provides the nourishment and disposes of waste of the developing embryo. So, here when the ovum is fertilized, it is undergoing the mitotic divisions, and finally it is getting attached to the endometrium. So this embryo, when it is attached to the soft inner uterine wall endometrium, this process is called as implantation of embryo. That is, the embryo is getting attached to the endometrium. I will show you in my next slide how does the development takes place. Now you understand? The female reproductive system is consisting of a pair of ovaries, yes, which are present in the abdominal cavity, and a pair of fallopian tubes or oviducts, uterus, and of course vagina. Now the ova are produced inside the ovary, inside the Graafian follicles, and when they are matured, they are released and they are flushed and caught by the funnel of the fallopian tube, and they are waiting in the fallopian tube for fertilization for the sperm to come. If the sperm does not reach the ova, it disintegrates, it is flushed out by the disintegration of the wall of the uterus. Endometrium is the inner wall of the uterus. So it is thickened and getting prepared to receive the embryo. And if the sperm fertilizes the ovum in the fallopian tube, the zygote rolls down and gets attached to the walls of the endometrium, and process is called as the implantation, the attachment of embryo to the endometrium, inner uterine wall, is called as the implantation. And the further development of the embryo takes place in the uterus. I will tell you how and what are the other membranes surrounded by the embryo is surrounded by. But you have to remember, if the sperm is not fertilizing, if the sperm is not reaching the ovum, then the endometrium wall disintegrates and the ova is also flushed out in the form of a menstrual cycle, which takes place in every 28 days. Okay, children? Now let us have a quick look at the function of the female reproductive parts. What is the function of the ovary? To produce the egg ova and to produce the hormones estrogen and progesterone. In males, the testes produce testosterone, and in females, the ovaries produce the estrogen and progesterone, which supports the reproduction. And fallopian tubes or oviducts catches the egg from the ovary and transports it to the uterus, which is the site of fertilization. And the fallopian tube is a site of fertilization which takes place here. And uterus, it is the site of implantation. That is, the developing embryo gets attached to the inner uterine wall, endometrium, which is enriched with the blood vessels to nourish the embryo, and finally the placenta is formed. Placenta is like bed-like structure on which the developing embryo rests. And vagina allows the entry of sperm and exit of baby at birth. These are the functions of the female reproductive system. Can you see here? Yes, the egg is waiting for the sperm to fertilize it. The union of egg and sperm is called as fertilization. And you can see the passage. When the sperm is not reaching the uterine wall, endometrium, and the egg are flushed out, as a menstrual cycle through vagina in every 28 days. You must learn to draw this diagram. Now, once the embryo is formed, then what are the membranes developed? The extra embryonic membrane in humans. Now, for this, you must learn that the embryo develops into the membranous structures that helps to nourish, protect, and support the developing embryo. These extra embryonic structures are chorion, amnion, allantois, and yolk. I will talk about each one of them in detail. Now, as you can see here, chorion, during the development of the embryo, now first I will show you how these membranes look like. These membranes are like this. Extra embryonic membranes. Can you see the chorion? Outer membrane, then amnion filled with the amniotic fluid in which the embryo is present, allantois, and yolk sac. Can you see the yellow color yolk sac and the green color allantois? And even we can see here the placenta, how the placenta is formed by the walls of the uterus. Now we will discuss the functions of each of these extra embryonic membrane. Now the first one is the chorion. During the development of the embryo, tiny finger-like projections grow from the surface of the outer membrane called as the chorion. Can you see the chorionic villi? Yes, they are finger-like projections which develop and penetrate into the soft tissues of the uterus. These tissues of the chorion and the adjacent part of the uterine tissue make up the placenta. Yes, maternal portion of placenta and the fetal portion of placenta. Can you see? Yes. So placenta is a tissue formed by the cells from the embryo and the mother. Placenta is a tissue formed by the cells of the embryo and also the mother. It is formed at around 12 weeks of pregnancy and becomes an important structure for nourishment of the embryo. It is providing the nourishment to the embryo, the placenta. When the baby is delivered, the placenta also comes out along with the baby. Under the normal conditions, there is no direct flow of blood from mother to the young ones. The blood systems of the two are separated by the thin membranes made up of cells that allow an exchange mainly by diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide, nutrients and waste materials. So, there is no direct flow. It is by the process of diffusion by these membranes. Diffusion, you know, from where there is flow, diffusion, oxygen enters into the embryo and carbon dioxide is released out by the process of diffusion through these membranes and even the waste materials. Then what is amnion layer? Now amnion is another embryonic membrane. The amnion grows around the embryo itself. The cavity within the amnion becomes filled with the fluid called the amniotic fluid, and the embryo develops in this fluid filled cavity which keeps it moist and protect it from minor mechanical injury. You understand? Can you see that blue color? Yes, that is amnion, and it is filled with the amniotic fluid. Okay, children. Then allantois is another membrane. Another membrane is called allantois. And these allantois, along with chorion, allantois, placenta, long tubular structure called umbilical cord is also formed. This is the part with which the baby is attached to the mother. When the baby comes out, the umbilical cord also comes along with the baby, which is cut and fixed. So these allantois contains the very important blood vessels that connects the embryo with the placenta. Coming to the fourth embryonic membrane, extra embryonic membrane, yolk sac, it encloses the fluid filled cavity. It has no specific function in placental mammals. Placental mammals means? Yes, those who are egg producing, there the yolk will play another important role, but here they have no specific function. Now this embryo develops until it is ready to born. From the third month of pregnancy, the embryo is called as the fetus. The pregnancy lasts for about an average 9 months or 280 days, and this period is called as the gestation period. Okay, children? All the organs are developed. Now let us revise just fast the functions. Corian surrounds all extraembryonic membranes and provides gas exchange. It is also helping the formation of placenta. Amnion provides the protective layer around the amniotic fluid. Yolk sac is found below the embryo, and this cavity is where blood cells are formed which travels to the embryo. Allantois is a part of the umbilical cord in the form of blood vessels to move the nutrients and the waste materials. So these are the 4 extraembryonic membranes and their functions. Umbilical cord is how formed, you can see here. See the fully formed baby, you can see here. Uterine wall, placenta, to which the baby is resting on the placenta, amnion membrane filled with amniotic fluid, embryo, yes, amniotic fluid also you can see, and the umbilical cord also you can see. This is how the baby is present inside the womb of a mother uterus. Now let us see how the childbirth takes place. It involves 3 stages of labor: the shortening and opening of the cervix, descent and birth of the baby, and delivery of the placenta. The first stage typically lasts for 12 to 19 hours, the second stage for 20 minutes to 2 hours, and the third stage 5 to 30 minutes. Now, I would like to tell you a few things in detail here. During the birth, as the pregnancy is completed, the uterus increases in diameter, and after the completion of the 9 months, when the baby is fully formed, during the birth, the head usually comes out first. Sometimes the feet come first, but it makes the delivery very difficult. So, childbirth begins when the muscles layers of the uterus start to contract and relax rhythmically. These actions are felt as labor pains. At first, muscular activity of the uterus is just strong enough to move the baby slowly down the vagina, the outer canal of the female reproductive tract. And then finally, the amnion sac around the baby breaks and the fluid is released. Amniotic fluid is released. This is a good sign that labor is well on its way. The contraction of the muscle becomes stronger and more frequent, and the baby is pushed out of the body through the vagina. Now the baby comes to the world. So the placenta and the umbilical cord leading the baby out of the body is tied off and cut by the doctor. The navel mark is present there. That is the place where the baby is actually attached to the mother through the umbilical cord. Now what happens after the birth also we should know? That after the birth of the baby, the muscular contraction of the uterus continue until they push out the tissues of the placenta, which are commonly called as afterbirth. During the end of pregnancy, a watery yellowish lymph-like fluid called colostrum accumulates in the mammary glands, which have gradually been enlarging and undergo transformation. For the first few days after the baby is born, the mammary gland secretes colostrum. It is very important to feed this to the newborn. It helps in developing the immune system of the baby. See children, you can have a look here how the baby comes. The head comes first, then the rest of the body. This is the position of the baby inside the womb of a mother uterus. So today we have seen what are the different parts of the female reproductive system and their functions. We have also seen the extraembryonic membranes and their function and their importance. Of course, we have seen what is childbirth and afterbirth also. I hope you understood the concept. Now take down the homework. Draw a neat label diagram of female reproductive system in humans. See, I have drawn this diagram in the PDF. You can note it down from there. and also write the names and functions of the 4 extra embryonic membrane. Okay children, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you very much.